Good morning. It's a pleasure and honor to be here. But it's not just as a pleasure and honor. I come to speak to you from my heart. I don't have charts. I don't have a prepared speech. I have a few notes. I don't have a mellifluous voice like Keswani. But I just want to talk um on a subject which I feel passionately about and which I think is of interest to all of you. On the occasion of Brand of the Year, which Marksman is doing, what better way than to remember what is it that takes to make a long living brand? And given my background, I've worked 31 years in Unilever. I've worked 18 years in Tata. I've been the chairman of Castrol for 10 years, all long living brands. I have learned from my own mistakes, which I propose to narrate to you. There are occasions when you make presentations about successful long living brands. I'm not doing that today. I'm telling you, मैंने खुद गलती करके क्या सीखा उसमें से. Because when I won't say your age, but when I was much younger, I began my career almost 60 years ago. Marketing was a jazzy profession. It was wonderful to get into marketing. IIMs were just coming up, and you did a major in marketing. You drop a few names like Kotler. You're a whiz kid. And it was a glitzy business. Marketing people had advertising agencies which were glitzy places, or so it was thought. Branding was considered to be a sexy business as compared to manufacturing. And every time you change your brand manager or your marketing manager, you thought you had to come with a new strategy. One of the most disastrous mistakes that I have made. And my company, when I was quite young, after my initial training, asked me to be the brand manager of Lifebuoy soap and Pears soap. I was all of 25. And they said, this is India's most expensive soap and India's cheapest soap. And Lifebuoy is the world's largest selling soap. And Pears is the most gentle soap. And I was at that age when you get mystified, mortified by those kinds of words. And the first thought that came to my head was, now what can I do which is different so that I'm noticed? Luckily, I had bosses who said, beta brand aise nahi bante hain. And then I have, through my career, it's now a long time, asked myself, why does Hindustan Lever live so long? Why does Tata live so long? Why does Castrol live so long? Why do some of these brands live for long? What is the secret sauce? And I have come to a set of views based on my own mistakes, not on pedagogy that's in the books, because each case is different. And I likened it, at my age, you can imagine that I do think of how to live long and be healthy. It becomes a concern for you after a certain age. When you're below 40, 50, you don't think about it. And people go for vipassana, they go for soul help from Ms. Keswani. And those are ways in which we seek constantly. I'm not saying one is good and the other is bad, but we all seek it. Our brands and companies, I'm using these words interchangeably, by the way, are they living entities or are they production machines? And the second question I asked is, if they are living machines, how do you make them Dirgha Ayush? When a child is born in any family, And you're invited as the uncle, auntie, elders, grandparents, whatever. We always say Ayushman Bhava, Dirga Ayush. The first thought of the transmission in a family is for the child to live long. That may or may not happen, but that's your blessing. And you hope, if you're a father, that your daughter, if you're a parent, that your daughter or son will do things which will make that child grow up to be value based, responsible, a contributor to society. And you tend to interfere also by telling your daughter or your son, beta aisa nahi karte hain, aisa karte hain. Sometimes that results in kich kich. Sometimes it works. Why don't we do the same with brands? So I want to leave with you this question. I have come to this conclusion. It may not sound profound, but since I have felt it in my body, I'm sharing with you something that I don't think most brand managers think about. Brands and companies are living human beings. They are not machines. If you want marksmen to live for 100 years, ask yourself, are you doing the right things for marksmen today? Yes, you'll have a seminar, you'll have another event, another thing happening. But what is it that you're doing to see that this becomes a responsible member? I'm saying marksman because I happen to be here. First, it is a living thing. Because, like human beings, brands have an Atma and they have a body. The Atma continues. It may even die, but the body may change. I used to be managing director of Lipton. Atma of Lipton exists, but there's no company called Lipton anymore. I used to be the managing director of Brook Bond. Brook Bond exists, but the company doesn't exist anymore. I used to be on the board of Ponds India. Ponds exists, but the company Ponds India doesn't exist anymore. Kisan was given birth to by somebody else. It came into our family, our meaning Unilever. Kisan, the Atma exists, but the body doesn't exist. So there is something to be said about this Atma and body. And brands are not bodies, they are Atmas. Companies are Atmas, they are not bodies. Likewise with the companies I've been associated with. Unilever was made when my grandfather was a young boy. And so was Tata. And so was Castrol. And they still exist as companies. But there are other companies which were created 10 years ago. Some startups which came like fireflies day before yesterday, were gone. Mortality is a reality of life. Immortality is impossible. But it's important for mortals and people who deal with mortals to think of what it takes to live long. And live well. Live long doesn't mean, on your crutches. I've gone and studied Japanese companies. There are Japanese companies which are 700-800 years old. 700-800 years old. Before Babar came to this country, that company was existing in Japan. There are Anglo-American companies that have lived for 100-200 years. There are European companies. I've just come back from Germany. They talk very proudly of what they call their hidden champions. The whole argument being that champions don't have to be known. In the world of marketing and advertising, it's glitzy. Fame is equal to gold medal. But there are a lot of sportsmen who are hidden champions. And around for 250 years. I asked one company, what is the product they make? They say, we make this particular bearing, which goes into anything that moves. I don't understand it. It goes into a car, it goes into a scooter, it goes into a space rocket. Everything there is about that particular kind of bearing, which has this shape. They said, my market share is 75%. Nobody knows me. But my company was started by my great-great-great-grandfather, and I'm doing only that. How much is your turnover? 250 million euros globally. But 80% of my turnover comes from outside Germany. Only 20% because I'm a global supplier. Impressive. But you never read about it. And so I'm saying that these hidden champions, sustainable, humane, enlightened companies, and how do you create them? And these are the Brahma mantra which I want to leave with you. First is the one that Ms. Keswani referred to a moment ago, purpose. No, I shouldn't say that. That's too strong a statement. Most brand managers don't think about the purpose. If Lifebuoy could tell you in 1882 that we give you good health, and they can keep saying that for 150 years and be the world's largest selling soap, and of which India is the largest contributor, there must be something to it. If your great grandfather or grandfather said, Beta, cigarette nahi peena, ye nahi karna, saans lena, you give some value to it. You don't go tomorrow and say, how do I relaunch my grandfather with new packaging? So the purpose is the reason for your being. And it's something very important to remind yourself of. And events like what Marksman is arranging today, you know, when I was young as a brand manager, the agency used to maintain something called a guard book. I don't know if it still exists in agencies. The guard book had the whole history of the brand. How it started, what was it? By the time I came, and that is 50 years ago, people were not interested in the guard book. I don't think it exists now. Tatas are very good at this. Tata, I myself have written a book looking at Tatas over 200 years, 150 years, and what made Tata what it is. And I think these are important lessons for brand people to understand. And I think of brand purpose like a Gangotri. When the Ganga starts in Gangotri, or the Kaveri starts in Talakaveri, it's the brand that creates the stories. It's not storytellers who create the stories. The storytellers narrate the stories. So if you come to Tata, people will say, Jamshedji Tata did this. Darbari Seth, Nani Palkhiwala, Ratan Tata. These are people, Sumant Mulgaonkar. These are icons who were created by the activities of Tata. They never set out to be icons. And the same thing happens with brands. Its purpose is very important. You do not, everybody knows this, you do not live to breathe. You breathe because you get oxygen. But you can take oxygen only if it's 20% of the air you breathe. If I give you 100% oxygen, you'll be dead. Don't go, too much profit is also bad for you. Too much prominence in the newspaper is also bad for you. Everything must be within its role. The second one I want to talk about is orientation. What sort of a company or brand are you creating? In my observation, there are 4 kinds of companies. I'm using company and brand interchangeably. And they come to the acronym HEAD, HEAD. H stands for heroic. E stands for excellence. यार रोज करते रहो, लगे रहो मुन्ना भाई. Last year से थोड़ा better करो और better करो. Compounding effect of that benefit. A stands for altruism. And D stands for discovery. But if you look at the dhamal around brands and companies, people think it's all heroic and discovery only. Where is the excellence and the altruism gone? You are here as a brand, as a company, समाज के लिए हो, कंपनी के लिए नहीं हो, shareholder के लिए नहीं हो. In fact, in Tata's, if you go, I'm giving only 1 or 2 examples, and I give examples of what I know. I'm not saying Tata's are special. Birlas are great, Mahindras are great, Godrej is great, but you don't have enough great companies. This country needs 10,000 Tatas, but there are hardly 10 or 20 that you can count on your fingers. Either they are in controversy, they're in the newspaper every morning, for whatever reason, good or bad, or they become baijus. And it's not, society doesn't move by that. So the orientation of HEAD is very important. This Brahma mantra for brands and long life, and I'm going to close with this, is you must be cohesive and have a sense of identity. Don't keep changing and chopping. Tata said in 1882 that we are here for the community. Today, you ask Chandrasekhar, he'll say the same thing. He may use different language, he may say it in Tamil or English or Hindi. The first thought that came when the terror attack happened in the Taj was, let's set up a trust for them. When the unfortunate Air India thing happened, the first thought, we'll set up a trust for people. Because that's our first responsibility. We are conservative with finance. Companies that live long are not Rambos in finance. You read the pink papers, you'll think that they are borrowing left, right, and center. That's all dikhawa. Some of them do, and they get into difficulty. But brands are really solid, trusted, because that trust is something you earn. And you earn it by being conservative, not by being Rambo. When Hindustan Lever wanted to launch Liril, I was a young sales manager. And we said, Liril should be blue. Somebody said, Liril should be green. And I was a test market person. We did in Nasik, we did blue Liril. In Nagpur, we did green Liril. Green Liril won. So we said, we'll do green Liril. And then came the advertising. And the late Alec Padamsee never tired of telling the story of how it was an idea that happened when they were sitting in the Western Ghats of Karen Lunel, cavorting under the waterfall. Everybody was shivering. It was cold. They got that magical moment. But they had the freedom to experiment. And then Alec came. I noticed that you mentioned here about surf. That whole campaign of "Isi mein samajhdari hai." I forget the name of that lady. Sorry? Yeah. Daag achhe hain. Before Daag achhe hain. So these are all moments of great inspiration that your agency and creative partners give you. And you must have the ability to experiment. So I'll leave that there. I wish you well. I just want brand people to think they're on a great national mission, not just some little brand. Yeah, you may be doing a small brand of chewing gum or digital something and may look very small to you. But the whole activity is of a great national nature. And I think it's very important. My desire, and I've told Mr. Rishi Kapoor, I said, God has recreated Rishi Kapoor all over again to do this. I thought he's gone, but he arrived this morning. Create 10,000 long-lasting companies, not people who come and gone in 20 years. Thank you very much.